The large silver ship touched down on the landing pad, causing the ground to shake slightly. Dust flew up around it as its engines powered down. A crowd of humans watched from behind a safety line, their faces showing a mix of fear and wonder. This was the day that everyone would remember, the day the aliens came to study on Earth. Dr. Olivia Martinez stood at the front of the greeting party. She smoothed down her official uniform and took a deep breath. As Earth's top expert in alien biology, she had been chosen to welcome the visitors. Next to her, Frank Miller checked his tablet one last time. He was nervous but tried not to show it. "Are you ready for this?" Olivia asked him. "Not really," Frank admitted. "But I guess nobody is truly ready to meet aliens." The ship's door opened. With a loud hiss, a ramp extended down to the ground. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they appeared. The aliens were tall, much taller than any human. Most stood about 8 feet high. Their bodies were covered in what looked like natural armor plates, hard and shiny like beetle shells. They walked down the ramp in a neat line, 12 students followed by their professor. Professor Zorthul was easy to pick out. His armor was darker than the others, with small marks that probably showed his rank. He stepped forward and raised all 4 of his arms in what they had been told was a greeting. "On behalf of the Craxian Empire and the Galactic University of Xenobiology, I thank you for this opportunity," he said. His voice was deep but clear, coming through the translator device at his throat. Olivia stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth, Professor Zorthul. We are honored to be part of the first cultural exchange program between our worlds." As they spoke, the human crowd whispered among themselves. The aliens were not just tall, but clearly very strong. One of the alien students stepped forward without being invited. He was even larger than the others, his armor plates a light blue color with streaks of gold. "I am Kralvex," he announced loudly, "top student and champion of the Craxian combat tournaments for 5 cycles." Professor Zorthul made a strange clicking sound that might have been a sign of disapproval, but he didn't stop his student. Kralvex looked around at the humans. "I look forward to learning about your species, though I admit I expected more." Frank frowned at this comment, but Olivia kept her diplomatic smile. "Physical differences are what make this exchange valuable, Kralvex. We have much to teach each other." Kralvex nodded. "Indeed. Allow me to demonstrate a simple greeting from our warrior class." Without warning, he walked to a nearby flagpole stand made of thick titanium. With one easy motion, he bent the metal pole into a curve. The human crowd gasped. "On my world, strength is how we first measure worth," he said, turning back to the shocked humans. "Can any of you match this?" No one stepped forward. "As I thought," Kralvex said. His tone wasn't mean, just matter of fact. "Do not worry. Your kind clearly evolved for thinking rather than fighting. That has its own value." Professor Zorthul quickly moved the conversation along. "We are eager to begin our studies. The 12 students with me are the finest young minds in our empire." After the welcome speeches were done, Olivia guided the aliens to the university campus where they would be staying. The plan was to pair each alien with a human student to help them learn about Earth. "Each of you will work with a human who studies in your field," Olivia explained as they walked through the campus. Human students stopped to stare as the group passed by. In the main hall, 12 human students waited. They had been chosen from universities all across America for this special program. Olivia called them forward one by one. "Susan Wilson, arachnologist from University of Arizona," Olivia announced. A woman with curly brown hair stepped forward. She was small compared to the aliens, but her eyes showed she was smart and not easily scared. "You will partner with Kralvex," Olivia said. Susan looked up at the huge alien warrior and smiled politely. "Spiders?" Kralvex said, clearly knowing what an arachnologist studied. "The tiny 8-legged creatures, that seemed less than challenging." Susan just smiled. "You might be surprised." Next came Greg Johnson, a broad-shouldered man with short hair who used to be in the military before becoming a biologist. He was paired with Tirnock, the alien who studied plants. Then Veronica Sanchez, who was training to be a doctor for children, was paired with Mevlara, the alien medical student. The pairings continued until all 12 aliens had human partners. That evening, the aliens settled into their special living quarters. The rooms had been made bigger, and the furniture strengthened to hold their weight. Professor Zorthul called his students together for a private talk. "Remember why we are here," he told them seriously. "Yes, we are physically stronger than humans. Yes, our technology is more advanced in many ways. But that is not the point of this exchange." "But Professor," one student said, "it's hard not to feel superior when they are so fragile." "Think about this," Zorthul responded. "Humans have lived on this planet for thousands of years. This world has large predators, changing weather, and diseases. Yet they survived and built a civilization. There must be strengths they have that we do not yet understand." Kralvex thought about this as he looked out the window at the campus. Humans were small and weak compared to his people. But something about Susan Wilson's confidence when he mentioned spiders made him curious. What could be impressive about studying tiny creatures that could be crushed under his foot? "I will try to keep an open mind," Kralvex promised. "But I still don't see how any small creature on this planet could be a threat to a Craxian." Professor Zorthul made a sound that translated as a sigh. "That attitude may change during your time here. Just remember, sometimes the greatest dangers are the ones we dismiss because of their size." As night fell on the first day of the exchange program, neither the humans nor the aliens could know how true those words would prove to be. 3 weeks passed since the aliens arrived on Earth. The Craxian students learned human customs but still acted like they were better than humans because of their size and strength. Today was special because the paired students were going on a field trip to the Sonoran Desert. Susan Wilson checked her collection gear as the university bus drove down the dusty road. Next to her sat Kralvex, who looked uncomfortable in the seat that was too small for him. "Why do we travel to this dry place to study?" Kralvex asked. "There cannot be much life here." Susan smiled. "The desert has more life than you think. It's perfect for studying how creatures adapt to harsh conditions." The bus stopped and everyone got out. The heat hit them right away. The human students wore hats and put on sunscreen, while the aliens seemed fine in the hot sun. "Your group will study this area," Dr. Martinez said, pointing to a map. "Stay within these boundaries and be back at the bus by sunset." Susan led Kralvex to a rocky area. She carried her collection kit carefully. "This is a good spot for finding arachnids," she said. "The tiny 8-legged creatures again," Kralvex said with a laugh. "On my world, predators grow to proper sizes. These little bugs would not scare a Craxian child." Susan didn't argue. She just knelt down and carefully turned over a rock. Underneath was a scorpion, which she quickly caught in a clear container. "See this scorpion? It's small, but its sting can make a human very sick," she explained. Kralvex bent down to look at it. "Interesting design, but still so tiny. Our biology processes toxins differently. Our warriors train by taking small amounts of poison to build resistance." For the next hour, Susan collected several spiders and explained each one to Kralvex. She showed him how they built webs, how they hunted, and how their venom worked. The alien listened but didn't seem impressed. Then Susan carefully opened a special case she had brought from the university lab. Inside was a small spider with a reddish-brown body. "This is special," she said. "It's a male Sydney funnel web spider that our research department got from Australia. It weighs less than a gram." Kralvex peered at the tiny creature. It looked so harmless compared to him, a giant with natural armor. "This little guy can kill a human in hours if left untreated," Susan said. Kralvex made a sound that his translator turned into laughter. "Perhaps to your kind, but to us, I doubt it would even make a Craxian itch." Susan carefully secured the spider case and put it in her bag. "Size isn't everything on Earth. Some of our smallest creatures are the most dangerous." Before Kralvex could respond, they heard shouting from nearby. It was Prelzan, another alien student, calling everyone over. "I found something unusual in the ground," the alien called out. "Possible ancient artifacts." Susan and Kralvex joined the others. Prelzan had discovered what looked like old pottery pieces and stone tools half buried in the sand. This might be from Native American tribes that lived here hundreds of years ago, Greg Johnson explained to the aliens. We should mark this site for the archaeology department. The discovery changed the focus of their trip. As the students recorded the location and took pictures, Kralvex continued making friendly but slightly rude comments about Earth's small threats. Your people had to make weapons, he said to Greg, pointing at a sharp stone tool. My people were born with weapons. He flexed his armored arms to make his point. Greg, who had been a soldier before becoming a student, just nodded. Different worlds, different solutions. When the sun began to set, the group returned to the bus with their findings. Back at the university, they went to the lab to catalog everything they had collected. Professor Zorthul came to check on their work. Ah, excellent specimens, he said, looking at the containers of spiders and insects. Our empire has nothing like these. The joint research will be valuable. The professor's assistant, Yexmar, helped organize the specimens. He was younger than the other aliens and seemed more careful than Kralvex. The variety of venoms on this planet is amazing, Yexmar said as he recorded data on each container. Even if the creatures are small. As the evening went on, most students left for dinner. Only Yexmar stayed behind to finish the work. As he moved the last container, the one with the Sydney funnel web spider, his hand slipped. The container fell and cracked open on the floor. The spider escaped and ran across the lab table. Yexmar panicked and tried to catch it. He moved too, quickly, and the spider, feeling threatened, bit him on his wrist membrane, one of the few parts of Craxian anatomy not covered by protective plates. Ouch, Yexmar said, finally catching the spider in another container. He looked at the small bite mark on his wrist. It was so tiny he almost couldn't see it. Not worth mentioning, he thought to himself. He finished securing the specimens and went to join the others for dinner, forgetting about the small bite. 2 hours later, during dinner in the alien quarters, Yexmar felt strange. His arm felt heavy where the spider had bitten him. When he tried to lift his cup, his hand wouldn't work right. Are you well? Professor Zorthul asked, noticing his assistant's trouble. I feel strange, Yexmar admitted. My arm won't move properly. Then, without warning, Yexmar fell from his chair. His body started shaking in a way that scared everyone. What is happening to him? Kralvex shouted, rushing to help. Professor Zorthul knelt beside Yexmar, whose breathing had become difficult. The young alien tried to speak but couldn't form words. Get the humans, the professor ordered. Something is very wrong. Kralvex ran faster than he ever had, straight to the human dormitory where Susan stayed. He pounded on her door. When Susan opened it, she was surprised to see the mighty Craxian looking scared. Yexmar is sick, Kralvex said quickly. He can't move right. He can't speak. His breathing is wrong. Susan's face turned serious. Did anything unusual happen to him today? Any injury? Even a small one? Kralvex thought hard. He stayed in the lab after everyone left, that's all I know. The lab where we brought the spiders, Susan said, her voice filled with worry. We need to check if any containers are damaged. As they rushed back to the alien quarters, Kralvex felt something he hadn't felt before on Earth. Fear. For the first time, he wondered if Susan was right about Earth's smallest creatures and their hidden dangers. Susan and Kralvex rushed back to the alien quarters. They found Yexmar on the floor surrounded by worried aliens. His condition had gotten worse. His body shook, and his breathing came in short gasps. The area around the bite had turned a strange, dark color. Did he mention anything about the specimens in the lab? Susan asked quickly. Professor Zorthul shook his head. He said nothing about any problem. Susan turned to Kralvex. We need to check the lab right now. They ran to the research lab. When they entered, Susan immediately noticed the cracked container on the floor. She carefully picked it up and read the label. It's the Sydney funnel web spider, she said, her voice tense. The container is broken and the spider is loose somewhere. Kralvex spotted the spider hiding under a shelf. Moving carefully, he caught it in an empty container. "This tiny thing?" he asked, looking at the small creature. "This is what's hurting Yexmar?" "Yes," Susan said. She was already on her phone. "Dr. Martinez, we have an emergency. Yexmar was bitten by a Sydney funnel web spider. We need medical help immediately." Back at the alien quarters, the situation was getting desperate. Professor Zorthul tried using Craxian medical devices on Yexmar, but nothing worked. The young alien's breathing was getting worse. "Our technology can't fix this," the professor admitted when Susan and Kralvex returned. "We don't understand. What's happening to him?" "The venom attacks the nervous system," Susan explained. "In humans, it can cause organ failure and death without treatment." Dr. Martinez arrived with Veronica Sanchez and her professor, Dr. Alan Hampton. They brought medical equipment and anti-venom. "We don't know if human anti-venom will work on Craxian biology," Dr. Hampton warned as they prepared the treatment. "But we have to try." Veronica checked Yexmar's vital signs using special equipment designed to work with alien bodies. "His system is shutting down. The venom is spreading faster than it would in a human." Kralvex watched in shock. Just hours ago, he had laughed at the tiny spiders Susan was studying. Now, one of those spiders had brought down a Craxian student who was bigger and stronger than any human. "How can your kind survive on a world filled with such dangers?" Kralvex asked Susan as the doctors worked. "We evolved alongside these threats," Susan explained. "Our bodies developed some defenses. Our science created treatments, and most importantly, we learned respect for all life forms regardless of their size." Greg Johnson joined them, bringing more medical supplies. The former Marine looked at the situation with calm eyes. "Your people are warriors, right?" Greg asked Kralvex. "Well, humans have been at war with nature since we first existed. Not to destroy it, but to understand it enough to survive." The doctors injected the anti-venom into Yexmar's system. Then they waited. For nearly an hour, nothing seemed to change. The alien student remained very ill, his breathing shallow. "It's not working fast enough," Dr. Hampton said with worry in his voice. Then Mevlara, the Craxian medical student, stepped forward. "Our bodies process things differently. Perhaps we need to adjust the treatment." Working together, the human and alien medical students modified the approach. They used a combination of earth medicine and Craxian healing technology. Slowly, Yexmar's condition began to improve. "His breathing is steadier," Veronica noted after another hour of treatment. "I think he's stabilizing." Everyone in the room relaxed a little. The immediate danger had passed, but Yexmar would need days to recover completely. Later that night, as the crisis calmed, Kralvex sat in the university library. He had requested access to all information about Earth's venomous creatures. What he learned amazed him. Susan found him there, surrounded by tablets showing images of spiders, snakes, and other dangerous small animals. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. Kralvex shook his head. "I've been reading about your world's predators. The blue-ringed octopus is smaller than my hand but can kill in minutes. The box jellyfish has no brain, but can cause so much pain that humans die from shock. And your mosquitoes, tiny flying creatures, spread diseases that have killed more humans than all your wars combined." Susan nodded. "Size isn't everything when it comes to danger. My people evolved on a world where threats were big and obvious," Kralvex said thoughtfully. "We grew strong armor and powerful muscles because we could see our enemies coming. But your world..." He paused, looking at an image of a tiny poisonous frog. "Your world taught humans to be cautious, to watch for small dangers, to respect everything. That's why we study even the smallest creatures," Susan agreed. "Knowledge keeps us alive." For several days, the alien students spent time learning about Earth's most dangerous small life forms. They visited special labs where venomous snakes were kept behind thick glass. They watched videos of box jellyfish swimming in ocean waters. They saw pictures of the damage that tiny parasites could do to much larger animals. Yexmar recovered slowly. When he could speak again, he described what the venom felt like. "It was like fire moving through my body," he told the others. I could feel my nerves stop working one by one. If the humans hadn't helped me, I would have died. Professor Zorthul sent detailed reports back to the Craxian homeworld about the incident. He included information about the spider and how it had nearly killed one of their strongest young students. 1 week after Yexmar was bitten, an urgent message arrived from the Craxian High Council. The aliens gathered to hear the news. The council is concerned about this biological threat, Professor Zorthul announced after reading the message. They find it hard to believe that creatures so small could harm our kind. They should believe it, Yexmar said quietly. I nearly died. The council is sending someone to verify the threat, the professor continued. Drez Khan, our empire's foremost warrior, will arrive on Earth in 2 weeks to assess the situation personally. Kralvex looked shocked. Drez Khan, my former teacher? The champion of 100 battles? Yes, Professor Zorthul confirmed. The council wants our strongest warrior to determine if Earth's small creatures truly pose a danger to our people. Susan looked worried. Will he take our warning seriously? It would be dangerous to underestimate these creatures. Kralvex shook his head slowly. Drez Khan respects only strength. He believes size equals power. He won't listen easily to warnings about tiny spiders. Then we must convince him, Professor Zorthul said firmly, before he makes a mistake that even he cannot survive. That night, as Kralvex looked at the stars where his homeworld was, he felt uneasy. Drez Khan was the strongest, most proud warrior in the Craxian Empire. He had fought monsters on a dozen worlds. How could they make him understand that on Earth, the most deadly dangers often came in the smallest packages? 2 weeks passed quickly. The alien students continued their studies, but everyone felt nervous about the coming visit. Yexmar had recovered enough to join classes again, though he still moved more slowly than before. On the day Drez Khan was set to arrive, everyone gathered at the landing area. The ship that came down was smaller than the one that brought the students, but it looked more dangerous. It had sharp edges and what seemed like weapon ports along its sides. A warrior's vessel, Professor Zorthul explained to Dr. Martinez. Drez Khan travels in a combat-ready ship at all times. When the door opened, even the Craxian students stepped back. Drez Khan was huge, nearly 10 feet tall. His natural armor was darker and thicker than the others, with deep grooves that looked like battle scars. He wore additional metal plates on his shoulders and chest, making him look even more intimidating. Kralvex bowed deeply as his former teacher approached. Honor to you, great warrior Drez Khan. Drez Khan barely nodded in return. His eyes scanned the humans with what seemed like disappointment. These are the locals? He asked, his translator making his voice sound even deeper than other Craxians. They look even weaker than in the reports. Dr. Martinez stepped forward bravely. Welcome to Earth, warrior Drez Khan. We hope your stay will be educational. Drez Khan made a sound that might have been a laugh. I am not here to learn, small one. I am here to evaluate a supposed threat. The High Council finds it hard to believe that creatures smaller than a finger could harm our kind. Professor Zorthul gestured to Yexmar, and yet one nearly killed this student. Drez Khan looked at Yexmar. Perhaps this one is weak, or perhaps the reports were exaggerated. Susan, standing beside Kralvex, whispered, He doesn't believe it. I feared as much, Kralvex whispered back. Drez Khan has fought the largest predators in 3 star systems. He thinks size equals danger. The group moved to the university's main building. Drez Khan had to duck to enter doors made for humans. This seemed to annoy him further. Take me to these dangerous creatures, he demanded once they were inside. I want to see these tiny killers that have the High Council concerned. Dr. Martinez looked at Dr. Hampton, who nodded. We can show you our secure xenobiology lab where we keep various venomous species for study. The secure lab was in the basement of the science building. Glass cases lined the walls, each containing different earth creatures. There were snakes, spiders, scorpions, and other venomous animals, all carefully labeled with danger warnings. As the scientists explained each creature's lethal abilities, Drez Khan grew more impatient. He interrupted Dr. Hampton's explanation about cobra venom. I have bathed in the acid lakes of Norvax Prime and survived the neural toxins of the Gremthar. Pit beasts, he declared. No creature smaller than my palm poses any threat to a true Craxian warrior. With respect, great warrior, Kralvex said carefully. I also doubted until I saw what happened to Yexmar. Drezkan turned to his former student. You disappoint me, Kralvex. These humans have made you fear tiny bugs. Have you forgotten your training? Have you forgotten what it means to be Craxian? Susan stepped forward. This isn't about fear. It's about respect for what different life forms can do. Drezkan glared down at her. Respect is earned through strength, human, not given to weak creatures simply because they exist. They reached the display containing a Brazilian wandering spider, among the most venomous spiders on Earth. This spider's venom affects the nervous system, Susan explained. It can cause breathing problems, muscle paralysis, and eventually death, if not treated. Drezkan looked at the small brown spider with open disbelief. This is what has the High Council worried? This is why they sent their top warrior across space? Please understand, Dr. Martinez said. Venomous creatures don't need size to be dangerous. Their weapons work at the chemical level, attacking systems inside the body. Your fears are the result of your physical weakness, Drezkan told the IDOI humans before turning to Professor Zorthul. These exchange programs mislead our youth into believing all species deserve equal respect regardless of strength. Before anyone could stop him, Drezkan pressed his hand against the security panel of the spider's container. Using his Imperial authority codes, he overrode the safety locks. The case opened with a soft hiss. What are you doing? Dr. Hampton shouted, but it was too late. Drezkan had already reached into the case. He exposed his wrist membrane, similar to where Yexmar had been bitten. Then he deliberately moved his hand toward the spider, provoking it. No, several voices shouted at once. The spider, feeling threatened, did what came naturally. It bit the alien's exposed wrist membrane. The bite happened so quickly that few saw it. Drezkan pulled his hand out and closed the case. He held up his wrist to show the tiny mark. See? Nothing. Your Earth creatures are... He paused and gave the humans a look of triumph. Are what? Susan asked nervously. Are nothing compared to real dangers. Drezkan finished, but his voice sounded slightly strained. Professor Zorthul stepped closer to the warrior. Drezkan, that was extremely unwise. We should get you to medical immediately. Nonsense, Drezkan said, waving him away. I feel nothing. The venom, if there is any, cannot affect a warrior of my caliber. Kralvex looked worried. Great warrior. The spider that bit Yexmar took time to show effects, too. I am not some student, Drezkan said angrily. I am the Empire's greatest warrior. My body has overcome toxins from 100 worlds. But even as he spoke, something changed in his posture. He took a step and seemed to waver slightly. You see? The spider's venom works faster on him because he's larger, Susan whispered to Kralvex. More blood flow means faster spreading. Drezkan began a speech about how the Empire had nothing to fear from Earth, but halfway through a sentence he suddenly stopped. His hand went to his chest. What is... He began, but couldn't finish. His massive body swayed, and then, to everyone's horror, he collapsed to the floor with a crash that shook the room. Medical emergency, Dr. Hampton shouted into his phone. Get the anti-venom supplies to the xenobiology lab immediately. Professor Zorthul knelt beside the fallen warrior, who was now breathing rapidly. Drezkan, can you hear me? The mighty warrior tried to speak but could only make gasping sounds. His eyes showed something no one had ever seen there before. Fear. Help is coming, Kralvex told his former teacher. But you must accept it. Do you understand? Pride still showed on Drezkan's face even as the venom worked through his system. He tried to shake his head to deny he needed help. Professor Zorthul leaned closer. By Imperial Law, Section 12, the preservation of valuable warriors is mandatory. You cannot refuse treatment. Finally, Drezkan gave a tiny nod of acceptance, just as the medical team rushed in with equipment and anti-venom. For 3 days and nights, Drezcon fought for his life. The medical team worked in shifts, combining earth medicine with Craxian healing technology. Kralvex rarely left his former teacher's side, helping the doctors understand Craxian biology. The mighty warrior drifted in and out of consciousness. His body, which had conquered so many enemies, now battled an enemy too small to see without special equipment. The venom from the Brazilian wandering spider attacked his nervous system, just as it would a human's. On the morning of the 4th day, Drezcon finally opened his eyes fully. He looked around the medical room, seeming confused at first. "You are in the University Medical Center," Professor Zorthul told him. "You have been very ill." Drezcon tried to sit up but found he was too weak. This shocked him. He had never felt weak before. "The spider," he said, his voice rough. "The tiny creature did this to me?" "Yes," Susan answered from where she stood near the door. "Its venom nearly killed you, just as it would have killed a human." The warrior was quiet for a long time. Everyone waited, unsure what he would say or do. Would he be angry? Would he threaten revenge? "I have fought creatures 10 times my size," Drezcon finally said. "I have killed beasts with armored skin that could repel laser fire. But this..." He looked at his wrist where a small mark showed where the spider had bitten him. "This tiny creature brought me down." "Size isn't everything," Susan said gently. "On Earth we learned that long ago." As Drezcon recovered over the next few days, he changed in ways that surprised everyone. Instead of being angry, he became curious. He asked the human doctors to explain exactly how the venom had affected him. He requested books and videos about Earth's most venomous creatures. 1 week after the bite, Drezcon asked to meet with Dr. Martinez and the other human scientists. The meeting took place in a conference room where the warrior could sit comfortably. Though still weak, he insisted on wearing his armor again. "I have been thinking about what happened," Drezcon began. "In my life, I have judged threats by their size and obvious strength. I believe that was the way of all worlds." Dr. Martinez nodded. "It's a natural assumption. But I was wrong," Drezcon continued. "Your world has taught its people a different lesson, that danger comes in all sizes, that respect must be given not based on size, but on potential impact." "That's exactly right," Dr. Martinez agreed. "Tell me," Drezcon asked, "how have humans survived on a planet with so many hidden dangers?" Dr. Martinez smiled. "We adapted. We developed medicine. We learned to observe carefully. Most importantly, we stopped assuming we knew everything about the world around us. We developed respect for all life forms," Susan added. "Not fear, but respect." Drezcon nodded slowly. "This is wisdom my people need to learn." The next day, he sent a long report to the Craxian High Council. Kralvex helped him write it, adding details about the spider venom and how it had affected both Yexmar and Drezcon himself. The report was titled, "Micro-Predators and Evolutionary Excellence, the Hidden Strengths of Earth." At first, the High Council responded with disbelief. How could their greatest warrior be nearly killed by something so small? They considered ending the exchange program immediately to protect their students. But Drezcon sent a personal message that changed their minds. "What happened to me was not a reason to fear Earth. It is a reason to learn from it. The humans have survived alongside these dangers for thousands of years. Their knowledge is valuable to our empire." 2 weeks later, the Craxian High Council announced that instead of ending the program, they would expand it. More alien students would come to Earth, and some human students would visit the Craxian homeworld. On the day of the first program's closing ceremony, Kralvex stood with Susan before a crowd of humans and aliens. They had become close friends during their time working together. "When we first came to Earth," Kralvex said to the audience, "we believed we were teaching a physically weaker species. We thought our strength made us superior." Susan continued, "But strength comes in many forms. Knowledge of dangers is a kind of strength. Respect for all life is another kind." Drezcon, still moving more slowly than before but standing proud in his armor, stepped forward. I came to Earth to assess a threat. I found not just a threat but a lesson. Our empire has always valued physical power above all else. But Earth teaches us that adaptation, awareness, and respect for even the smallest creatures are equally important. Dr. Martinez announced the expanded program. 10 human students will travel to the Craxian homeworld next month, and 15 new Craxian students will join us here on Earth. After the ceremony, as the first group of alien students prepared to return home, Susan gave Kralvex a parting gift. It was a small display case containing a hologram of various Earth spiders. To remind you that big lessons can come in small packages, she said. Kralvex laughed. I will never forget that lesson. Nor will any Craxian who hears the story of how Earth's smallest spider brought down our strongest warrior. Drezcon overheard this and joined them. I was humbled by your small predator, he admitted. But in being humbled, I learned. Sometimes defeat teaches more than victory. On the day the new human students would leave for the Craxian homeworld, Drezcon spoke to them privately. You will find our world has large, obvious dangers. Beasts with claws and fangs that you can see coming. But remember to share with my people what you know about respecting threats of all sizes. The human students nodded, eager to experience an alien world just as the Craxians had experienced Earth. As the exchange program grew over the following years, both species learned from each other. The humans learned about facing large dangers with courage. The Craxians learned about watching for small dangers with respect. And in schools across the Craxian Empire, young aliens were taught an important lesson. Never judge a threat by its size alone. Remember Earth, where the smallest spider could bring down the strongest warrior with a single bite.